The Blind Tony Story. Book 1, Chapter 4. After the death of Teddy Bear, everything changed. I grew a lot more closer to my sisters, and I opened up a lot more to my mother, but at the same time, I became more aloof and distant from everyone and everything else. Everything that is except Dad. Dad became my hero. Dad became my idol. And after the death of Teddy Bear, I elevated him in status to just a little bit below God. I love Dad even more than I love Teddy Bear. Love has always been very important to me, and kisses and hugs are just as necessary as sunshine, fresh air, and good food. In fact, the only thing more important than love are God and family. And since love and family both originate from God, they are all interrelated, all necessary, and all in fact are one. There's the family of God, which includes everyone, related to everybody else in faith by an all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing God. Even though most religions and religious leaders indoctrinate, discriminate, alienate, and in many other ways teach hate based on their traditions, doctrines, tenets, perceptions, and other misconceptions, there's also the family of man, which includes everyone, everywhere, just based on the fact that we're all humans, and therefore descendants from common ancestors. For example, Adam and Eve, and by extension, antediluvian Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And even if one chooses to subscribe to the theory of evolution as opposed to creation, we are still related by heredity, genealogy, and genus itself, for we are all still Homo sapiens. Within all of these generalized groupings, there's the specific combined family grouping of the Horton and Rogers families. And within that grouping, there's the small clan grouping that represents my immediate family. There were 5 of us at this point in time. Dad was the head, the Reverend Elijah Wake Horton from Apex, North Carolina. His second in command was Emma Jane Horton, formerly Emma Jane Rogers from Edenton, North Carolina. She was both his wife and first mate. Then there was Patricia Ann Horton, firstborn child and my oldest sister. And then there was Mary Eva Horton, better known as Kim. She was the baby girl, but she was still my older sister. Last but certainly not least was definitely me, Anthony Wake Horton. We were all bonded by genus, faith, love, and God himself. Our immediate extended family consisted of many aunts and uncles from both sides of the family tree. Tons of cousins, 4 grandparents, and 1 great-grandmother. Dad had 11 brothers and 3 sisters. Mom had 3 brothers and 1 sister. Everyone in our family was very close, even by extension. And the importance of family was emphasized over and over and over again. At least once every year, Mom and Dad would pack us all into the car, load the cooler with sandwiches, sodas, and snacks, and we would travel from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to North Carolina to see our grandparents. The trip would usually last for a week, and the time would be equally split between Dad's home in Apex and Mom's home in Edenton. As I said before, family was very, very important to us. Dad's home in Apex, North Carolina, was not very far from the state capital, which was Raleigh. There was a Horton Road, a Horton Creek, plenty of land, and even a Horton Cemetery. The woods surrounding the family home seemed to be endless, and it was interspersed with small cabins that were used for the curing of tobacco. There were also cornfields, hog pens, chicken coops, cows, and even a bull or 2. The ground around Apex always seemed to be blood red, and Dad said it was red clay.
Portrait.
The air always smelled rich with the heady fragrance of the earth, especially after the rain. I love the country and I always will. Mom said I'm really a country boy, although I was born, raised, and lived primarily all my life in the city. Whenever we entered Apex, it seemed like everybody was related to us in one way or another. Family is one of the chief cornerstones for Endeavor, and although Dad had a lot of brothers and sisters, they didn't all share his deep affinity for God. Most of them drank, cursed, and lived pretty much like normal people do everywhere. But whenever Dad was around, they would try very hard to control their tongues as well as their drinking. Dad was recognized even by his own family as a true holy man. And he has always commanded great respect from them as well as from others. Even his mother said that Lodge was different than all the other children when they were growing up. He had this special love for and fear of God that was unique and very genuine. Even today, over 55 years later, I have never, not even once, heard my father say a curse word. And I have never, not even once, seen my father take a drink of alcohol. And I have never, not even once, seen my father flirt with another woman other than my mother. Yeah, in many ways, Dad was definitely not normal. And believe you me, I have tried repeatedly all through my life to find fault with him whenever and wherever I could, especially concerning his walk and talk with God. And I am forced to admit, proudly and not reluctantly, that Dad is the real McCoy. And I love him very much for his steadfast devotion and consistency, especially in the face of the changing times. Adversarial opposition and callous ridicule. For there were many times when I perceived his strength as abject weakness, and I would not hesitate to let him know that I thought it was so. Many times I said hurtful things to him, and in an effort to elicit some negative response, and time again, Dad refused to take the poison bait. He seemed to possess some type of inner peace that enabled him to smile on the outside while hurting within. And he refused to return evil for evil. His ability to turn the other cheek truly transcended all my understanding. And there were quite a few times when I went to him to apologize, only to have him say that he couldn't remember me doing anything that had hurt him. To forgive means to not keep account of the error. This is something that I have tried hard to learn how to do all my life. And still as of yet, I've been unable to master it except on very rare occasions. I am, however, getting better at it because the way that we forgive others forms the foundation for the way that God will forgive us. Dad's father died without me ever having had the chance to really get to know him well. But I do remember him as a quiet man with a big, beautiful smile and a quick wit, who usually let his wife take the lead in most routine matters. Grandma Carcella, Dad's mom. Now she had this big, warm smile and always seemed to have fresh baked breads and other treats just sitting on the wood-burning kitchen stove whenever we came. I would awaken to the smells of fresh baked bread, hot sausages, tangy, sharp yellow cheese, and a never-ending variety of special treats. We never stayed long enough to suit my taste, and upon our goodbyes, I would usually get blessed with at least $1 silver and a ton of hugs and kisses. Everyone would lament our departure, but I especially have to mention Aunt Gussie, Uncle William, Aunt Catherine, Uncle Loomis, Uncle Ellis, Aunt Darius, and my Uncle Eugene. All of them had kids that were my age, and I loved them all. I think I reminded everybody of Lodge when he was a little boy, especially Grandma Carcella. At Mom's home in Edenton, North Carolina, there was Grandma Mary, Grandpa Claude, and Great-Grandma Hathaway. Grandpa was blind, but he seemed to see more of life than most people do that have both of their eyes in good working order. He ran a small country store, and he provided most of the staples for the people, black and white, in that neighborhood. It was truly amazing watching him interact with the many colorful characters that frequented the store. Grandpa was a huge, barrel-chested bear of a man who wore bib overalls, a dark sunglasses, and a big straw hat. He usually would be smoking on a big, thick cigar. Grandpa wasn't afraid of anything. Even blind, he would go after snakes and anything else that threatened his home or his friends. His fearlessness and strength were legendary, and most of his customers were like extended family to him. There was a big swing on the porch that looked like it had been built for one of the Nephilim. And everyone who lived on the road would gather on Grandpa's porch after dark and exchange gossip, consume honey buns, drink sodas. Cigars were smoked, legends were told, and I loved it. Grandpa usually had a bottle of whiskey, which he kept hidden from Dad and Grandma Mary. And occasionally, a curse word would slip from his lips in Dad's presence. But it was okay, because Dad loved Grandpa a lot, and Grandpa loved Dad a lot. Most of the store's transactions were written down in a ledger, and the accounts were settled at the end of the week, month, or season, under Grandma Mary's watchful eye. It was impossible to cheat Grandpa or to steal from the store, although there were a few that tried. It was as if Grandpa could really see. Grandpa knew where everything was, and he kept a mental inventory. He also knew exactly how many steps it took to get to everything, so he was fairly independent. The only thing he really needed was his Molly, Grandma Mary, and the only thing that she seemed to need was her Claude. Grandma Mary was an extremely hard worker who primed the water pump in the ice-cold chill of the pre-dawn mornings, chopped wood, and then cooked all kinds of delightful foods on a wood-burning stove. Her rolls were the best, and she would always make sure that we had plenty of them whenever we came. She would also give me lots of hugs and kisses, but she was also quite stern and would tolerate none of that up north uppityness that was fast becoming my trademark. She didn't coddle me or pamper me like Grandma Carcella did. Several times she sent me to cut my own switch and then pulled my pants down and beat me mercilessly while I cried, screamed, and pleaded for Mom and Dad to save me. But I could see from their eyes that they were scared of Grandma too. Grandma Mary was no joke. She even told Grandpa what to do, and everybody was scared of Grandpa. Snakes and foxes would even run from Grandma when they messed with her hens. She loved her egg-laying hens very much. There was also a mule, hog pen. Right beside the chicken coop, there was lots of land, cotton fields, peanuts, corn, huge fruit trees, grapevines, as well as pecan trees and rose bushes. It was a very beautiful place. There was also great-grandma Hathaway, Grandma Mary's mother. She was this beautiful black woman who never seemed to age. Rumor has it that she was married to an Indian who refused to work on the plantation. Nevertheless, he loved Grandma very much. But he died an alcoholic. Grandma Hathaway loved me very much, and she saved me from the wrath of Grandma Mary several times. I still miss her a lot. At both of my grandparents' houses, the hardest thing for me to do was to use the outdoor toilet. I was scared to sit on them because of all the many stories I had heard about the snakes that lived in them and the many tricks that they liked to play on their unwitting visitors. There were slop buckets in every bedroom for urinary purposes at night. But if you had to sit down, then you had to use the outhouse, whether it was day or night. Needless to say, I stayed constipated a lot. In fact, I would never move my bowels while we were on that road trip. I always overate, and I always ended up impacted. My bowels would just lock up. I took a lot of laxatives and was given a lot of enemas, but my fear of the outhouse was greater than everything they tried. Everybody had suggestions for Mom to try, and she tried them all, from eating dirt to sticking a spoon up my butt, and nothing seemed to work. Fear is a powerful catalyst. The goodbyes were always hard, but I always ended up with at least $5 silver. Lots of cookies and sweets, and a ton of hugs and kisses. I loved visiting my grandmas very much, and I always hated to leave. Being down south also gave me my first taste of real racism, and that was scary. It was a long trip from Philly to North Carolina, and almost always Dad would choose to drive at night. Many times those big tractor-trailer rigs would try to run us off the road, and we would all tremble in fear while Dad prayed and tried to outrun them, especially on Dismal Swamp Road, which was a 2-lane highway that truly lived up to its name. Add to this physical nightmare the psychological terror of seeing billboards that advertised the presence of the Ku Klux Klan. A man in a white robe with a hood and a red cross on it, pointing his finger at us with a caption that read, "The Klan wants you." The closer we would get to North Carolina, the more racism we would encounter. The gas stations all had segregated toilets. Even the major corporations like Exxon and Mobil and Texaco would have these filthy little wooden outhouses around the back of the gas station for black people to use. There was no Chesapeake Bay Bridge tunnel back then, but there was a very long ferry boat ride that also had separate areas for whites and blacks. I was told by my sister Pat about an incident involving my little sister Kim when she was just a little girl and she wanted to ride on the mechanical toy horse. That little toy horse that she saw the little white girl riding on. But unfortunately, the toy horse was only for white kids. Kim fought, kicking and screaming and crying and pleading, and couldn't accept the fact that this little white girl could ride that horse, but she couldn't. It's hard to make sense out of something that's senseless, especially to a child. As I said earlier, I would always return from North Carolina with my bowels locked up. Many remedies were tried, and I hated them all. Once I even poured brown shoe polish down the toilet and called Mom and Dad to tell them I had a breakthrough finally. Timing was the key. I had to flush the toilet just as Mom opened the bathroom door. It worked once, but the next time I tried it, I got caught, and it never worked again. I was fed mineral oil, citrus of magnesia, Father John's fish emulsion, and given a lot of soapy enemas until I either had a breakthrough or got sick. I also had a problem with my hair. It seemed that it just wouldn't grow in certain spots. So Mom had to apply this foul-smelling purple ointment to my scalp daily. I was now a constipated leper that nobody wanted to be around, except my family. Mom, Dad, Pat, and Kim all still showed me love. And even though Kim sometimes teased me, none of them ever withheld their hugs and kisses from me. This was to be a powerful omen of things yet to come. But as of yet, I was still too young to be able to discern and interpret a lot of life's patterns. It's funny how certain memories linger after all these years. Teddy bear, my sibling rivalry, encounters with racism, my grandparents, the fire hydrant, my hair, my bowels, overdosing on pills, which I did once while supposedly being watched by my this time less than vigilant sisters. I took a bottle of pills that I found while mom and dad were out, and I ingested them all. And then I went behind the couch and fell asleep. My sisters thought I had gone to bed, but when mom and dad returned, I was found semi-conscious behind the couch with the pill bottle beside me. I was taken to the emergency room and pumped out, and then returned back home. Boy, were my sisters in trouble that time. There was another time when Dad had just purchased a new used car, a station wagon with wood on the side that we called Woody. And I tried to drive it in imitation of Dad. I released the emergency brake and drifted down to the bottom of the hill. I was unharmed, but quite shaken, and Dad was furious. But the crowning event of my childhood that marked the death of innocence for me and gave me my first real encounter with the world's insanity, it took Dad from hero status and formed the basis for a lot of insecurities that I would struggle with for years. I remember that day clearly. Dad came home from work and presented me with a brand new tricycle. It was truly magnificent, and I was very proud of it. My sisters were very jealous because toys were rarely given in our house, even on Christmas. You might get an occasional doll or cat pistol, but there had never been a toy given of this magnitude before, and it wasn't even Christmas. It must have been a tremendous sacrifice for Mom and Dad. But as I said earlier, they loved me very much. Anyway, as I was riding my new tricycle in front of our house, up and down the block, a disgruntled bully, of which there were many on Marston Street, seized my tricycle by force and threw it through the coal bin window. Then he punched me in my face, and I screamed and cried for my father. Dad came running. He asked me, "Where's the tricycle?" And I told him in the coal bin, and then he hit me. Before I could even explain what had happened, he hit me. And even after I explained what had happened, he hit me again and then sent me to bed. Nothing made sense anymore. Why did that boy take my bike? Why did he hit me? Why did he throw it through the coal bin window? Why did Dad hit me? What should I have done? What could I have done? That boy was bigger than me. He was meaner than me and totally insane. And on top of that, he was now gone. The whole world had suddenly gone crazy. Trust, security, and innocence all destroyed in an instant by one senseless act. This too was highly prophetic, for wasn't it also one senseless act in the beginning that triggered the fall of man and its many consequences that we are still dealing with even today? Anyway, it's hard to make sense out of that which is senseless, especially to a child. Welcome to the real world.